Okay, let's tackle secret number one. Okay, the first secret is a lot of you have been familiar with the term that we've been really promoting for well over 5 years now, which is the promissory note. And this is what I call the ultimate capital management strategy. You'll notice that I have capital management underlined because the other secrets do a different type of management and provide different type of benefit. The promissory note, here's our model. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at our client on the left side as exposed, and then we have our protection line, this green dotted line, and on the right, that's the private retirement plan. That's going to be the exempt or protected side of the fence. So again, what you're going to see is you're going to see some movement between the balance sheet on the exposed side and the balance sheet on the protected side to optimize planning. In the way of a promissory note in the model, what a client would do is engage our attorney partners and TRUST-CFO and say, hey, I want to set up a private retirement plan. And then we're basically going to provide an initial analysis. This is always done first step in using our diagnostic exemption calculator online. And I'll reaffirm that at the end of this presentation. And what we do is we come up and become the benchmark by how much can you put in, what can you put in, and what's appropriate. And we don't want to go beyond that. Because again, that validates the proof of need. The best person that I know that does this is Jeff Verdon Law. What Jeff does is he does full integrated planning. So he says, Ray, I want you guys to provide us the analysis of a private retirement plan first. I want to know how much I can get in, what I shouldn't surpass. And oh, by the way, when I know that we have exhausted that, now I know I have to get to my other planning and then figure out how to integrate exemption planning with asset protection planning. So Jeff's very good at that. And that's why he ends up being, a consultant to a lot of other attorneys. When we do this and we create the analysis in a box, it never solves all problems. We can only take a bite at the apple that is appropriate. So again, we have limits. So once we've exhausted or capitalized on that, what's going to happen is we're going to have something left over that's still on the client's balance sheet. And those are non-appropriate or non-PRP personal use assets. Things like a home. We can't fund a home, and we never have, into a private retirement plan. It's not appropriate. It already has its exemption in California, a homestead exemption, and you can't double up on exemptions in California. And B, you're living in it as a personal use asset. And there's recent case law in the last 5 years that clients have tried to do that and they've got their teeth kicked in. So those are things that we want to quarantine and identify and inventory on the exposed balance sheet. There are other times when, again, we might not want to fund a private business interest because it's got covenants and restrictions or certain types of banking, provisions that don't allow funding and things like that. So there's some prohibitive, issues. And the same occurs with complex investments. We evaluate those, we inventory those, and we come up with, this has got too much hair on it, it's not appropriate, and therefore it sits on the unprotected side. But what the promissory note does is what I discovered years ago. This is when I first started. I saw a court case, and the court basically said, well, what you put in there is protected, but what you don't isn't. And what they failed to do is identify the future earnings capacity of a client. And a lot of our clients are 35, 45, 55 years old, and they have a huge future. They're making millions per year. And if you accumulate that, it could be 20 or $30 million worth of future assets. And so what a promissory note does is it formalizes and it inventories that future earnings capacity. And we built in the modeling to forecast that and quarantine the value. So what a client's going to do is say, well, not only am I going to fund what I have today and not what I don't have, but I'm going to fund a promissory note of future earnings, okay? And that promissory note is now an asset. But in a private retirement plan, the promissory note as an unfunded asset needs to be equated on its balance sheet. So the promissory note, if I was a banker, which I was, I'd say, hey, listen, Bob Jones' client, we know you're good for it. You're making tons of money. You got other assets, but until such time as you pay it, the promissory note needs to have a secured interest to equate its balance sheet, and B, it needs to have a growth rate because it's an asset of the retirement plan, and that's going to come in the form of an interest payment. So what we do is we formalize the promissory note and we prepare basically the secured interest by taking liens on exposed assets. So this is a way for us to capitalize on the future value of a client's retirement and yet protect current assets as a result of that. It's extremely potent and a great tactic. Again, just formalizing this, a client's going to have to make annual promissory note interest payments. If they don't make that, basically the note is not secured, and that's when an attacker might be able to come in and disrupt this. So we, again, need to make sure our clients can service that note. And how we do that is we basically look at what their capacity is commitment for annual earnings. So every year they're going to be earning money, and we need to know what of those earnings is committed to funding the promissory note. Now that's a good thing. When my real estate developers figure this out, they go, wait, Ray, how much can I charge myself? I want to charge myself 10%. Because why? Because then they can get more money off their exposed personal and business balance sheet and move that money over to their safe pocket. So again, it becomes a good strategy.